He's ready. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the SAU55 board meeting October 2nd at 7:01 PM. Mrs. Belcher, could you call the roll, please?
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kimberly Farah.
Here.
Jason Giard. Here. Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Markamer. Here. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell. Here. Kristen Savage. Susan Sherman. Jennifer Silva.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
James Sweeney. Karen Yasenka.
Here.
Seated also this evening is the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, CFO Business Administrator Jeff Dowd, Director of Human Resources Nancy Lewis-South.
If you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll move on to the approval of the July 24th meeting minutes.
Okay, point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes?
I'd like to actually call for weighted voting for the, for Timberline, well, for regard to Timberline for the evening.
Okay.
So I'd like to make that as a motion.
Is there a second on that motion? Second. Mrs. Lowe seconds the motion for weighted voting for Timberlane. Mrs. Savage is just entering, so I'm going to wait till she's seated. On you?
What, waiting on me?
There's a motion on the floor and a second for Timberlane to move to weighted voting for the evening. All in favor? All opposed? 7, 4, 1 opposed. Mrs. Yasenka?
For the record, I'd like the record to show, please, that the Hampstead Board objects to the use of weighted voting as it disenfranchises the Hampstead taxpayer.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the July 24th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 24th, 2019.
Mr. Boyle makes a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Mrs. Silva seconds for discussion.
On page 2, the second paragraph, about 4 lines down, where it says we're talking about the comp time liability, it says that liability is reported each year in the annual audit. I did go back and look, I didn't see in the audit where comp time was reported.
So that was the minutes, though. That was the discussion.
I understand that was the discussion, but, so this is my question. That being put in there, I don't know, I guess maybe
Well,
we'll clear that up, I guess, in the next meeting.
Well, that was the discussion. The minutes just are supposed to reflect the discussion.
Kim,
Dr. Metzler?
just because Member Silva can't find it doesn't mean it's not in there. I checked with the CFO, it's under compensated absences, it's in every audit.
But that's an absence.
Was it compensated absences? That's where the liability is held, under compensated absences.
A comp time isn't an absence.
That's how it's recorded, based on how the auditors wanted it recorded. That's where it's recorded, and it's there every year.
So,
I'm just pointing it out that it is in the audit every year.
okay, so when we look at an audit for compensated absences, and I understand we're paying out sick time and vacation time and things like that, comp time was being paid for time that was worked, not for time that was absent. So,
I'm not an auditor, that's just where the auditor said to record it.
that's fine, I just want to point out, so saying that it's there reported every year, I mean,
Well, it is, that's why we said
Okay,
it.
again-
I think it's a semantics thing because you're technically correct, but it wasn't called out specifically, which was what happened. That was what triggered the whole conversation of board, so it's in that line, among other things. So I don't know, we would not know that. But I think in terms of approval of minutes, I think the minutes just are supposed to reflect what happened at the meeting, so whether, even if you find out other information later on, you can, to me, you can act on other information later on, but you have to approve the minutes as the meeting was held. All right.
Are there any other comments on the minutes? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes? 12 in favor, against? Abstaining? One abstaining. Moving on to the preliminary budget and the process. You have the budget in your packets. Doug, do you want to walk us through this preliminary
Thank you.
budget?
Thank you. Kim. So you'll see in front of you the proposed budget for the 2021 year, and I'll go through a couple of highlights. Salaries is up, reflecting the addition of the part-time position that we added this year, along with the other obligations for the positions that we have, and a merit pool. I've budgeted $9,000 under audit, which is that very first line, 2317, 330. I won't necessarily bore you. You can see school board expense, next line down. I'm thinking that there may be some additional expenses incurred by the board with everything that's going on. Conference and travel expense, that's at 20, which is more true to our spend rate. Course reimbursement level, technology services up slightly. And if you recall, that technology services line is a combination of various systems, programs, and the like that we use that benefit both districts. Legal services, I've put in at 80 as a proposal. It's up to the board where you think that number is going to be. I really have no idea. Office rental, everything else is generally consistent throughout. On the second page, employee insurance is up, reflecting, I don't have a GMR as of right now, so I had to use one in the 6% range based on trend. And when you look at our budgeted compared to actual, we don't have a very big pool available. And we do have, let me just put it this way, not all employees participate in the health insurance program or benefit. They could, and as a result of that, I don't have a lot of flexibility in saying, well, if I have 5 employees who don't participate, perhaps I budget for 3 who may. We just don't have the numbers to do that, so I have to budget for full participation at our current rates. Employee retirement, Social Security, simply a factor of salaries. So the other employee benefits line, you'll see that that's budgeted at $311,508. So the discussion on this, I believe, in previous years had been that that line was budgeted typically at about a third of what our actual liability could be in that line for things such as retirement incentive, sick leave, vacation time, should it need to be bought back, and the like, compensated absences, anything like that that would need to be bought back, as well as any employee annuities that are provided. And in this case, with the withdrawal or the Timberlane's potential withdrawal in play, I budgeted that at the full amount this year, which would satisfy those liabilities should, I don't know what would happen in the end. I don't know what the disposition would be, but I can certainly see a lot more, perhaps retirements, departures, if that were to be successful, than we had in years past.
Brian?
So, so listening to what you just said then, Jeff, so this is what you're estimating is like a worst case type thing?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Because I'm looking at, like, obviously, I understand about the potential withdrawal here, but, so you're looking at so the actuals last year was 160,000.
Correct.
And in the 160,000 was a payout of comp time, is that?
Correct,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so it might be helpful, I know that,
That comp time payout was, actually, because I don't think the superintendent's $10,000 is reflected in the actual payout, that would have been 138,706? Was that the comp time payout last year?
The superintendent's $10,000 payout.
Is
Oh, the annuity match?
Right, that's not reflected in what I'm seeing here on this sheet as a payout, is it?
All right, let me pull up the sheet that you're looking at.
well, we're looking at also, it might be helpful, I think, because obviously you're not going to be finalizing this budget tonight, because there's been conversation, with counsel from Hampstead. It might be, in fact, I know it's going to be helpful, we're going to need, they have an actual breakout of that 311,508.
If you'd like that, I can provide that.
Yeah, so we can see
Well-
exactly what's going on.
It's not even just the breakdown. Can you explain the retirement incentive to me? What is the liability associated with the retirement incentive on both exempt and non-exempt employees?
So depending on the administrator, or on the benefit sheet associated with each employee group, there is a retirement program, a retirement incentive available. I have Nancy here, if you'd like to speak to the specifics on it.
I know exactly, I know what it is on the exempt employees that are under contract, because it's part of the administrator's benefit sheet. And my understanding is that you don't qualify for it till you're here at least 11 years. Is that correct? Okay.
So of the, go ahead.
Can you explain the non-exempt employees? Because I'm trying to figure out where this number comes from.
So, I just want to, do you have the number of years for the non-exempt?
I think it's 15.
I believe it's 15 years for the non-exempt, and it's the same formula. So that's 1.25% of their final salary times the number of years that they've been with the district, which would be SAU55.
So looking at that, not all of our employees qualify for that retirement incentive.
Correct. So you're calculating it based on, so this number is calculated on the worst-case scenario that every employee at the SAU claims everything that they're entitled to, and we have no employees left in SAU 55.
Correct. I don't know that I would say that we have no employees left. Certainly the employees who have a benefit available may be inclined to exercise that benefit.
I'm sorry, I didn't really understand that.
So if an employee is entitled to a benefit, and if a withdrawal were to occur, if they were entitled to that benefit, I can see them wanting to exercise that benefit.
If they leave SAU 55.
Yeah, or if SAU 55 for whatever reason contracts and it
If
just.
we're- if- I'm sorry, I'm having a hard
If-
time hearing you, Jeff.
If SAU contracts its workforce, they may want to utilize that retirement incentive. And there are some questions if, would that, even if an employee were to leave SAU and join Timberlane, in Timberlane's own SAU, if they didn't exercise their retirement benefit incentive, it wouldn't go with them to Timberlane.
No different than if an SAU employee left tomorrow to go somewhere else, correct?
Correct.
We've had, if I could?
Sure.
We've had people in the past that worked for one of the particular districts that ended up in the SAU or vice versa. And I know it doesn't sound fair, but say you left one of the districts and came here, you lose the benefits that you had at your previous one. Like if you had to use it or lose it kind of thing with sick time, they started over.
Right.
which seemed a little unfair, because you're in the same SAU with the same districts, but that's just kind of the way it worked.
Because you're going from a district employee to an SAU employee.
Correct, yeah.
I think that it's important to keep in mind that that these are three, Hampstead, Timberlane, and SAU are separate legal entities. So if you were to be an employee leaving Timberlane to work at the SAU, when you come to the SAU, all of a sudden the SAU now would be picking up whatever retirement incentive you hadn't accrued and earned through Timberlane. So that's really the idea behind not having that, ability to transfer.
So this $311,000 is assuming that every single SAU 55 employee
Who's eligible?
Actually, every employee, because even, this isn't just retirement incentives, correct?
Correct.
So this is assuming every single SAU 55 employee is no longer going to be an employee of SAU 55.
Correct.
Dr. Metzler.
I would suspect there will be some, in the event of a withdrawal, there'll be some reclassification of employees in both districts. There's
So
been some.
that's just why I was asking, because I don't know that scenario is
Probable.
realistic, right? That every single person is going to, nobody's going to stay with SAU 55. I don't,
Does the Hampstead board have any comments on this? This SAU 55, should Timberlane withdraw, would consist of Hampstead. Do you think that's a realistic scenario, that all the SAU 55 employees would be leaving at the point of withdrawal?
I don't know how realistic it is, because I have no idea how everything is going to play out. Personally, I would rather be prepared for it, so you're not then on the end of it getting stuck with something that, one, if there is a withdrawal, we're trying to negotiate between districts or figuring out that number in the end. Personally, I'd rather be prepared for it, whether we talk about, can we amend that number? Obviously, we can, it's our budget, but that's kind of where my thinking is. I'd rather be prepared.
I guess the lion's share of it would be falling on Timberlane anyway, so to me, again, this is a preliminary thing here tonight. I'm personally not concerned about being prepared for a worst-case situation, because if Timberlane had to make up another $100,000, they would find that in the Timberlane budget to make it up. I mean, I don't want to see us over budget to have a worst case at SAU 55 and then a worst case at Timberlane, so,
That's entirely up to the board.
Sure, I
To,
understand.
Yeah. Simply explain it and.
I mean, it's a valid point, and I agree with that. I agree with Caitlin Pennell. I understand what her comment, but I don't think that, and there'll be discussions about other items besides that, but I'm like 100% confident the Timberlane is going to meet any type of obligations it's supposed to have. So you won't need a lawsuit to get the Timberlane board to meet its obligations, so to speak.
Sean?
Yeah, in regards to the salaries, the 1.135 million, is that the sum for all SAU positions that are filled and not filled?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to see the breakout on the salaries by position.
Concur.
Yeah, okay.
I think we usually get that at some point, right? Yeah.
We don't have it here.
It would have to be the next meeting, yeah. Sheila?
I think we also got the breakout for, help me out here, raises, incentives.
Yes, we
I'd
did.
like that also.
Yeah, merit pool and then.
Correct, I'd like that also.
all the other things.
Stipends, maybe it's like a stipends
Correct.
line as well, yeah.
Can we have that also?
Certainly, yeah, that'd be part of that salary schedule.
And I have one more question. I know I'm gonna say the wrong word here, and I'm gonna classify it as wrong, so, I know I am. We have a fund beyond this.
You haven't gotten it wrong yet.
Okay, can you tell me what's in that
One
fund?
that we hold on to, so.
Right, can you tell me what's in that fund?
Yep, it's an It's a fund balance, an unassigned fund balance.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not a separate fund, it's part of our entire fund, but it's a fund
But
balance.
it's that
You-
where we keep extra money in case anybody leave, whatever we need it for, yes.
That's it exactly, yeah. So net balance is about 178,000 or so.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Sorry, Jen?
Thank you for that $311,000 number. I think that was helpful for everybody to have to understand what the full, everything would be. Just on the electricity and gas line, I'm just wondering, I know we talked about this at the last Timberlane meeting, because we had realized a tremendous savings on some of our utilities. Do we not benefit from that with the SAU because it's so small, or?
It's small, it's not an exact science. We don't look at the meter and say, well, your computer was running all night and you used the lights here. So we just try and approximate what that amount is and reimburse Timberlane for it. So,
I think we had this conversation before, though, that these numbers are
never change.
exact.
yeah,
Like, we budget 3,000, we spend exactly 3,000.
that's a reimbursement right to Timberlane. So we budget
Right,
that reimbursement.
Okay.
Those savings are realized in the Timberlane budget, if that makes sense. We had, for both districts, we negotiated a fixed rate over 5 years, so they did a really good job getting us gas and electrical prices, so electricity prices, so those are predictable. The one thing that's not predictable is, I'm sorry, Sheila, the one
No.
is the greatest maximum rate. We don't typically get that till about the third week of October. And the 8-year average, I asked Nancy today, it's 7.62%. I believe you budgeted at 6%.
6, yeah.
So that's just a guess about what the
Something.
the GMR, it's the insurance line, what we suspect it would go up. So, is that, and what's the other, the Primex number?
Yeah, no,
That's-
I don't get those until mid-October, but in the context of SAU, it's not a huge,
That's more in the district budget, got
it's
it.
not really a
Yeah.
huge factor.
Sorry, we're doing 3 budgets at the same time, so I apologize if we're crossing over.
So that increase in that employee insurance is representative of that 7.62?
Of just 6%. I asked, we got that average about an hour ago, just because I said, when do we get the greatest maximum rate number, the GMR number?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, I'm sorry. And that won't come in until probably, like I said, the third week of October. You'll have it definitely by the time you have your public hearing for this budget in November. It's been kind of we're not sure about that second SAU meeting every year, but we know we have it by the public hearing for sure. And that number typically would get adjusted at that meeting.
Sheila?
Can you tell me why our contract services steadily gone down?
We
went
have-
from 50 to, and you're budgeting 25? So I guess
I've looked at the classification of what's captured in that line, and really it's, much of it is really more technology services. So you'll see an offsetting increase in that line. It's more of an accounting issue, proper classification of the expense, and these expenses evolve over time. I take a look at them if they could be better accounted for. I make the adjustment.
Thank you.
Good question, though.
Legal, you touched briefly on that overview. So last year, we budgeted 40, spent 24,006, and you're suggesting 80. So that's 3 times what I'm just curious why you're,
With a potential withdrawal at hand, I don't know that we'd be spending more to try and make sure that that is sorted out correctly through the SAU, or if that's going to be handled at the district level.
that's when I'm thinking it's the districts.
I think that happens at the district level.
That's what-
Each district
that's what I
has an council.
That's why I was asking that, because I'm thinking that basically that, obviously,
It would have to be handled, because how could the SAU
right,
be arguing against Timberlane
or yeah,
Hampstead?
Or Hampstead, yes.
So I don't think we would be putting those sorts of funds into the SAU budget.
And that lawyer that was working with you guys on your study, that all came out of Timberland, right?
It's Timberlane's
Yeah,
budget.
so,
Well, you have several things going on, several things going on right now, and I don't know how appropriate it is for a public discussion, but your spend rate is probably at about 100 to 120,000 as we speak. And if we continue on at the same rate that we went through
Certainly.
July and August into September.
I certainly hope we don't continue on the same rate.
Well, we suspect the third-party billing, we suspect that might be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range when that study is completed. We suspect, based on the number of hours that have been spent already. But we're just trying to budget correctly so we have money in the budget. I know that's this year, but
For Timberlane, you mean?
What do you mean third-party billing? I don't know.
Third-party
perhaps the
billing.
chair can explain.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Help me out here. What are we
The
talking?
interviews?
Oh, okay. Okay, that attorney about,
Yes.
okay.
Mrs. Yasenka.
I have a question about legal services also. I'd like some clarity on who exactly is the person in the firm that represents SAU55.
Well, in my mind, it's Attorney Broth at this moment. After we had a resignation where Attorney Broth was not involved, I requested that the superintendent moving forward speak to Attorney Broth regarding SAU55 matters, especially as they, correct?
Oh, time out here.
Dr. Metzler?
So,
That was not that was a request to the chair, not an action of the board, but I did honor that. Yeah.
Thank you.
But to Mrs. Shisenka's point, I would think your SAU 55 lawyer is the law firm.
True.
It's not,
Drummond Woodson.
it's not,
it's the whole firm.
correct.
Right. So then who represents Timberlane?
Drummond Woodson.
Timberlane School District?
Same firm.
Same firm?
Mm-hmm.
Same person? Mr. Broth?
On certain matters, yeah.
I think,
And wasn't Drummond and Woodson representing Hampstead until just recently? No?
well, here's the difference. For years, DW represented all three legal entities, Timberlane, SAU, and Hampstead.
Okay.
But at such point in time that the withdrawal was announced, and we would be adversaries on that situation, Hampstead found it prudent to cut ties with DW and have our own legal firm,
Okay.
okay?
Certainly Hampstead's decision to make.
Yeah.
Right. But now Hampstead has an issue with the fact that the same firm, and as you said, maybe the actual same attorney, is dealing with both Timberlane and the SAU on matters.
The Drummond and Woodson is not dealing with Timberlane on anything pertaining to the withdrawal. We have another firm pertaining.
Oh, not the withdrawal, but other things. Like if there was a meeting here, I saw it on the video, and Attorney Broth was here for the SAU.
No, he was not. When Timberlane met?
No, when the SAU board
When the
met.
SAU board met, okay.
And then people left, and there was a lack of a quorum. He then met specifically, because, Madam Chair, you said, well, can you meet with the Timberlane members?
correct.
And you went in and you met.
That's correct.
Well,
So, and then the other question tied into that, where is Jim O'Shaughnessy in this?
He's a member of the firm of Drummond Woodson.
I know. And so, it's my belief anyway, that that entire firm is then complicit and really has some ethics issues and conflict issues that need to be addressed, because it's a breach of confidentiality on Hampstead's side, both ways.
What?
If something is said at an SAU meeting, and then that is repeated to the Timberlane board,
But we
I
would
mean,
be
I
at
don't
the-
believe there's any Chinese wall at DW. I believe they talk. I've seen bills where Attorney Broth has spoken to Attorney O'Shaughnessy on the same matter. And in reverse, and I think more importantly for Hampstead, we're kept out of the loop
What are you kept out of the loop on?
on matters that are happening.
Uh,
For one, without mentioning names or anything, there's a current investigation going on.
I'm
don't
sorry,
know
your
anything
chair
about
was
it.
informed of that investigation. I attempted to have an SAU meeting. I contacted your chair. seeing if I could get the Hampstead board members to come to an SAU meeting, and I was told that there was not any interest in attending. So I beg to differ, Mrs. Yasenka.
Yes, you let me know that
Thank
the
you.
investigation was happening.
Thank you.
No one on this board had a say in how that happened,
How
or
was
if
that?
it
Why
was
Nor did
happening.
I.
Why was that authorized? Who
Who
authorized
authorized
that?
the investigation then? If you didn't, who did?
The chair did.
The chair did.
You
You're the chair.
authorized the investigation.
On advice of counsel. On advice of counsel.
Could you please show me, either in the minutes or in policy, where you have the authority to do that? Where you have the authority to
to-
run up legal fees
If
and an
someone is threatening
entire
a lawsuit
district doesn't
against-
even
If
know
somebody
about
is.
it?
Somebody's threatening
And
a
I
lawsuit?
can't get the Hampstead board members to attend a meeting, I think that the interests of the SAU take precedence there.
You've made it clear that without us, you don't need us here. You have made clear that you can do all of you can do whatever you want.
We didn't make it clear. It's a voting, this is the table. This is where it happens.
It's rule by force, not democratic process, when you use weighted
RSA.
voting on everything.
That's the process.
It's RSA, it's law.
Don't hate the players.
Excuse me, you cannot
Sean,
keep saying
stop.
point of order.
Stop it.
Only the
I
chair
didn't
has
say
that
point of order, I
privilege.
said it's RSA, is what I said. I
Okay,
never said
let's
point
just-
of order.
Sorry.
All right, well, back to
Let's
the
just-
legal thing. Hampstead would like some clarification, actually, on who is, if Attorney Broth is the SAU, it just reads, he's the attorney for SAU 55.
No, Drummond and Woodsum
There you
is
go.
the firm that represents SAU 55.
Have a deep
Yep.
bench.
Thank you, that's all I needed to know.
Okay, move on.
And, well, before we move on here, I don't think Jim O'Shaughnessy or Mark Broth or anyone else in that firm needs anyone on this board to tell them if they have a conflict of interest. I'm pretty confident these guys will know when they can't step down, much like when there was action from the board from Hampstead against, very quickly, it was what they couldn't and couldn't do for us. I mean, in a split second, they said, oh, you guys got to get somebody else. So I'm pretty confident that firm knows what a conflict is.
I
without-
don't share your confidence.
Okay.
Let's vote on it.
No, well, it's,
Okay.
okay,
You can use weighted voting, so you don't even need us to vote. All right.
yeah, okay.
But there are other places to have this discussion, not at this board level. It'll rise to another level. And someone else
Is that
can
a
make.
threat?
No, it's just, it's a process. If Hampstead's not satisfied at what happens at this level, we can rise to another level and have another committee determine whether or not DW's participation in both boards is ethical and meets their ethical canons.
So you obviously, what you're referring to, you want to put a claim in, it's probably New Hampshire bar or something against at the firm. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what you just said. I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
You alluded to
What did you say?
I said the next level
The next level. What is that? Is that like the next parking lot? What do you mean the next level?
would be. And I don't need your snarkiness.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
All right. Mrs. Lowe's?
seeing that Attorney Broth is here, maybe he can clear something up for Mrs.
Did you
Yasenko.
want to,
I'd be happy to address it.
okay.
Okay.
We're talking about the budget.
Could you come to a microphone so that everybody could hear? Mrs.
Yeah,
Sherman's
sit
not
right over
here.
there. Sit right over Sue Sherman's seat.
Yeah.
Knock yourself.
For the record, this will be Attorney Broth, who's from
Talking about
Drummond and Woodsum,
line item
SAU 55 Council.
2090.
We'll be addressing these questions.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you.
So SAU 55 is a corporate entity. The Timberlane School District is a corporate entity. Both have retained the services of the Drummond Woodson Law Firm to represent them. Previously, I understand that the Hampstead Board did as well. And there's nothing wrong with a law firm representing multiple entities as long as the interests of those entities are not in conflict with each other. When a conflict arises, for example, the withdrawal issue, we aren't representing anyone in the withdrawal issue, as I understand it. There's separate counsel for both the districts whose interests may not be aligned. On other matters, where there is no apparent conflict between the interests of the Timberlane Board
and the interests of the SAU board, there is no conflict. What is the interest of the board is what the majority of the board wants to do. Our client is the majority of the board. We take direction from the board. We take direction on some matters from the superintendent. If the majority of the SAU board's interests are aligned with the Timberlane's interests, there's no conflict there. If the SAU board and the Timberlane board's interests were not aligned, then we would have to withdraw from representing one or the other, or even both. So we are extremely conscious of our ethical obligations. I appreciate you bringing the concern forward. We don't represent Hampstead at this point, as I understand it, in any matter.
That's correct.
So if the interests of Timberlane or the SAU are not aligned with the interests of Hampstead, that doesn't create a conflict of interest for us, because you have your own counsel.
But if the majority of the SAU is also the same people that are the Timberlane board, doesn't that in itself is a conflict of interest, because it's the same people, even though there's an entity of the SAU, but it's the same people that are the majority?
That's the legal structure as established
Not-
under the
not
law.
disagreeing with that.
So that's outside my control. That's the system that the legislature put in place, and the voters put people in certain positions, and the board is then composed. So,
I'm asking as a law firm, not as the
yeah,
state.
and I'm saying as a law firm, we don't have a dog in this hunt, so to speak. What positions the SAU board takes on any particular issue, that's for you folks to determine, and we just then take your direction. If the majority of the SAU board at this point, as it votes on issues, if the majority of the SAU board is aligned with the Timberlane board, then there's no conflict for us there. If that were to change, if that were to be different, if the SAU board wasn't aligned with Timberlane, then we would have to make a change in our representation. But right now, there is no conflict that I'm aware of between any issue that the SAU is addressing and any issue that Timberlane is addressing. If there were, we would get out. We would have to.
Are there any other questions pertaining to that?
I have a question concerning the most recent investigation. I want to go back to who exactly retained you for the SAU. Because I got a call from a third-party attorney saying that that firm, a third law firm, had been retained on behalf of SAU 55. And when I asked her who retained her, she said you did.
Correct. So I was at the direction of the board chair. I secured outside counsel from an independent law firm that has no relationship with either the SAU or either of the districts to conduct that investigation. And I did that at the direction of the board chair.
And before we proceed any further with that conversation, we will be going into a non-public under L to have further discussion as to why that was necessary.
Okay,
It is
so then
not
at that time, you
appropriate.
will explain why you unilaterally decided to hire a third firm without a vote of the board. I look forward to your answer. Thank you.
Believe me, I will let you know. Okay, moving on. Any other questions on the budget?
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to compensatory time. In the packets, you have a rewrite of the procedure for policy DKD. Mrs. Sherman couldn't make it, but she did advise me that the New Hampshire School Board Association is looking at the SAU policies and that they will be hopefully sending those back sometime in November with comments. So this is a procedure, this is not a policy.
What's that? It's a policy, not procedure.
No, DKD, the hyphen R means that it's a procedure. DKD is a policy, R is a procedure. I'm not sure why it's R or P, but,
Really?
yeah.
Look at that. if you could. We took the language pretty much out of your motion for this. I do want to let the board know that I still feel that a use it or lose it with comp time is probably not something that would hold up. They're saying they have to use it within 90 days. There are some laws, but we wrote it exactly how you wanted it written, but I do have concerns over forcing employees to use a day that they, within 90 days. So I just want that on the record that I have concerns about that, because I don't believe you can force people to use it.
Attorney Broth, do you have any comment on what the superintendent is saying, that this may be problematic?
So I haven't seen the policy that you're looking at. I haven't been asked to review it. I can say there are rules under the federal law dealing with the administration of comp time for non-exempt hourly employees. For salaried exempt employees, comp time could be administered at any way that the employer chooses to, because for salaried exempt employees, compensatory time is not an Fair Labor Standards Act benefit. It is a benefit of the creation of the employer.
Okay.
Okay, so this procedure reads, other exempt employees of SAU55, excluding the superintendent, must use their acute comp time within a period of 90 days from the date the time was earned. That's allowed under law.
It is not in conflict with the law, because the law with regard to comp time only applies to hourly non-exempt employees.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this?
Just review, that's what this is.
Well, we're just, we don't approve procedures. It was just requested that the procedure be rewritten based on the vote that was taken in June to codify that motion and vote.
Just looking at this and reflecting back on the minutes from the last one, in a couple places, the minutes talk about depending how the Department of Labor rules on overtime, the Department of Labor will make final determination on the matter. Do we have any result from the Department of Labor that should be considered?
We were directed to not speak to anybody other than Attorney Broth. We're also looking forward to hearing, because we have reasonable expectation that overtime would be paid at time and a half, so we're still waiting on that answer from Attorney Broth, but we haven't contacted any other agencies on that behalf.
What? Can you just say what you said
We have a
again?
reasonable
Who directed you not to talk to anybody but Attorney Broth?
Attorney Broth did through you, that I could not talk to anybody other than Attorney Broth on this matter. That was your words through him to all of us, so we didn't. In writing.
Okay.
We're not to talk to any other agency other than Attorney Broth, any other lawyer other than Attorney Broth, unless it's our
Attorney
own.
Broth.
Unless it's our, let me finish, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless it was our own personal attorney, which people have, but as far as district employees, that's the only attorney that we spoke to. Whether we agreed or disagreed was irrelevant. We took your directive and followed it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for
If I
taking that.
understand correctly, the direction that was provided at the board chair's direction was that the SAU administration seek its legal advice with regard to the comp time administration from the SAU's law firm, and not independently go out to seek advice from others, reserving to them as individuals their right to consult with their personal attorneys if they chose to do so. But if there was going to be contact with a governmental agency or others seeking of legal advice on behalf of the SAU, the direction was that would be through the SAU's law firm.
I didn't say that differently, did I?
You did not.
No, I didn't think so. I said the same thing.
John?
Yes, this is an updated procedure, this is the proposal of that. Do we have the previous procedure for this compensation time?
Well, I have it. I brought it.
Yeah,
We had it before,
Okay.
not in this packet. But back to Jen's question regarding time and a half, there was a series of questions that came under discussion with the SAU board and were written up by Attorney Broth and then subsequently sent to the SAU, which the SAU has responded to back to Attorney Broth, but I have not seen those responses. I don't know, Attorney Broth, do you want to discuss those now, or I'm not really sure where we should go on that.
I don't know if you want to discuss that now or in a non-public, because it deals with employee compensation.
So I think we should also discuss that in the non-public, okay?
Could that be part of the compensation packages, non-public that's on the agenda, or, you think?
No, this would be under L.
Oh, that'll be under legal advice, but, what's the other one is what?
A or C.
A and C, okay.
Okay, so are there any other comments on this procedure? Mr. Yuseika?
Yeah, I know, I understand that weighted voting is legal. I get that. But I would just like to point out that per the mandate of the SAU board on June 24th, which reads here, that was a tie vote. 6 were in favor, 6 were opposed. If we use the one person, one hand vote, that would have been a tie. So without weighted voting, this would have failed. The motion would have failed on the table. It passed because you used weighted voting, and that's the only reason it passed.
We noted.
Thank you.
Moving on, the audit update.
First read? No? Wait?
This is a procedure. I didn't think that the board approves procedures.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
So in your packet,
Response
so.
to a directive.
This is,
We've been
I-
following this since that meeting.
okay, thank you. Mr. Dow, do you have an update on the audit? When are we looking to get, and the reason I wanted this on the agenda is, as you know, there's a pending vote on the withdrawal of Timberlane. Once that vote passes, there's a, assuming that the whole thing, there's a transition year, but I would imagine that we'd want the final the SAU audit as soon as we could have that.
So as you're aware, the Timberlane Board has some goals involving operating and default budget presentation, I believe, tomorrow night, which is about 6 weeks earlier than normal. So the focus of my office has been on that work, on getting that prepared. If you'd like me to make the SAU audit a priority, I can certainly do that. It's not a big audit, in fairness.
What is the board's feeling on that? I mean, each board should weigh in on that, because we have, I know Timberlane's audit has not been done yet, so how do the boards
Has the
feel?
fieldwork ever been done yet?
Nope.
So all over since July 1, all in August, we did nothing towards any of the audits then?
I don't,
Statement?
well, I believe that the Timberlane Board was presented about a year ago, that it would be the recommendation of that consultant who had obtained or retained for that purpose to add a senior level finance staff and an additional resource on top of that. I have a part-time, which I believe is next on the agenda, accountant, which was approved a year, actually it was this meeting last year that we had discussed utilizing money in the budget to bring in that position at the time. That position was subsequently cut, restored to the budget in, I believe, late June. So the resources in my office are unreasonably thin at the moment. I have ongoing demands, which have never been requested before, particularly from the Timberlane Board, for laughing.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, snickering.
Actually, my nose is itchy, so please go on.
That
I didn't mean to
obviously
interrupt.
tax my office. So when there are goals in place to have audits done 6 weeks in advance, that doesn't mean that nothing in July or August was done toward getting that audit ready. That means that I have state filing deadlines, as you're aware, with the state forms that we have, the DOE and the MS-25, to get those in. I don't need, if you want me to account for what I do every day, I can. I'm letting you know that the office is very, very thin right now. Your own consultant has told you the office is thin. So to say that nothing was done toward the audit in July and August, I have to prioritize. And if that's something that you would have liked done, I would have liked to have known. But, again,
I don't
what's
think
being.
that was the question. I think Mr. O'Neill was just asking, had the field work been done? And I guess the simple answer is no.
No.
So right now, we're looking at the fact that there are outstanding audits at both districts and at the SAU level. I personally, and not speaking as the chair, feel that the SAU audit should take priority, given the pending vote on withdrawal. What do each of the boards feel?
I would agree.
Timberlane?
Out of the 3 audits, yes.
Of the 3 audits,
The SAU would be.
I think
Priority for me would be, if they're understaffed, that would settle that, so there's not this ongoing, what's priority, what's not. It's been provided by auditors that they're understaffed, then I would say we should be supporting the staff so they can get all the things done, all the requests, all the deadlines, mandates, et cetera. That's what I think the priority should be.
I think we tried to do that in hiring a bookkeeper, correct?
we did add a part-time position at
Okay.
the last meeting, correct?
Yeah, can I just?
And just one second before you
sorry.
do that. Again, I've heard that we cut a half-time position, and that was part of the issue. The half-time position that was cut from that budget was never articulated as being a business operations part-time person. You can go back to the minutes. It was for transportation, it was for right-to-knows, it was for other admin work. So that topic keeps coming up, that this board cut it. It was not filled for a year. The Timberlane board was the ones that got the consultant, and that consultant was never brought to this board because the SAU would not fund the additional help. And I'm just trying to fill the new people in for those resources. So Timberlane ended up footing the bill for that, and that was an SAU function. So I just want to, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't give help, but right now we need to, the question on the floor is, which audit, when the audits get done, and, I mean, we're moving down to bookkeeper accounting position update. When the audits get done, does anybody have an issue with the first audit being on the floor is the SAU audit? Given the pending withdrawal and the fact that, and it's a matter of public record, that Hampstead has already weighed in, that they don't think Timberlane's addressed liabilities, and that if this passes, there's going to have to be some discussion between the boards. That's why I think it should be the priority.
I would agree, because it's also the smallest.
It's small, it's $2 million audit.
It's
No, we don't have a problem with the SAU audit being.
the priority of the 3 audits.
Being the priority of the 3 audits, yes.
Thanks.
That's what
Dr.
I'm-
Metzger?
If I could get back to the position, so I don't disagree with you, but, you know, Brian, I'm not trying to drag you into this conversation, but we had 2 halftime positions that they were cut. They weren't filled so that this board would have the opportunity to create the help for the business office moving forward. We had an unexpected resignation this summer, and that created other issues in our office, but later that year, after the budget had passed and everything, it was May or June or July, one of those meetings, you said, go ahead and find the support. It wasn't funded, but find the money, which we said we'd be able to find the money, which we have found the money, right? So I think, I mean, cut, not cut, support provided, I mean, we took something out, we put something back. You attempted to provide the support. We're trying to do that. I've been, trying to get this other bookkeeper, accountant, kind of pushing that along. I'm very happy we'll be able to share that we are bringing somebody on, and we have Mr. Colby still with us. So we're trying to get there. But in fairness, the office is thin. We have completely changed the flow of work here to address, not audits, but to address the budgeting, right? So we moved everything up. I mean, I'm straight out, he's straight out, Nancy's straight out with negotiations, but all the budget meetings that typically would have happened with departments and getting budget, we moved those up 6 or 7 weeks. And I know I've indicated this to a few of you in email. And that's really tied up the business office. So field work wouldn't have been able to be done now anyway. If they could have been doing field work now when we were doing the budgeting, and then we'd be doing the budgeting after the field work. I'm not sure I don't think we have the capacity to do both at the same time. 'Cause they-
I don't think we're asking, I just want to ensure that that we're understanding that the SAU audit needs to be a priority. Jen?
Yeah, I'll ask the question, even though it's good information. I mean, if the withdrawal doesn't pass, we're gonna be in the same situation every year. But is field work able to be done starting July 1, when the books close on the 30th, over the summer? Is that,
In theory, no, and in reality, no, but I'll let Jeff explain why. And I can only tell you the practical piece of this, it's not my job, right? But I can tell you when I need this.
yeah, no, not mine either. That's why I'm asking,
I
because I
know.
don't understand it.
Well, when I need the business administrator, when the field work people are here, they tie up the business office all day. They take this whole room over, and they're up asking questions and getting documents all day long. I don't have access to the business office either. I'm usually interrupting, because I need the business office for particular items or things. But I'll let him explain as to what the challenges are with something like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, because I look back on the days that when I was the other full-time staff, we actually were able to get most field work done. Granted, the requirements on the office were a little less then than they are now generally, but that full-time staff, what that allowed was for multiple audits. And you mentioned taking the room over. They used to be able to do that, and they aren't even able to do that now, because if I have 6 or 8 auditors, there's one of me. And so if there's a question, there might be a queue. Prior to that, when we had an additional full-time resource, we were able to have 2 people to go and address questions or be able to provide documentation for. And I can assure you the spirit in which my response came is in fact that I am here for the very purpose of being able to try and make sure this office is operating as efficiently as it can, the district is operating as efficiently as it can. I think that we've done a good job with the resources that we have, both in terms of the way that we've been spending and how those, and particularly in facilities, how those projects have come out. I don't enjoy having to run around and get signatures. That's really not what I enjoy doing. I don't. It really comes down to trying to get those priorities done. And we were able to get audit in, actually for all 3 entities, sometimes in August. And it was a very, very structured thing. We can't have them in July. We don't have our numbers in, each service different numbers in. But in August, we were able to do that. They were able to come in for a week and come in and get their work done and leave. And they could all work very efficiently, because they had two of us at least to deal with. I'd much rather be adding value to the analysis in reporting. And you as the board are looking for better reporting. I want to provide better reporting. And we were able to do that in the past.
I can appreciate that, and I think that's a large part of what the discussions around the withdrawal process were about being able to not have people stretched so thin and be accountable, to one entity rather than 3.
I just,
Yep.
and sorry to go on, and so I've had to take up on some of the previous business coordinators, business operations coordinator. I'm with Brian trying to figure out how to get a fire escape out of taking down. Brian's been awesome and very helpful in that regard, but we are stretched crazy thin, doing like 4 or 5 jobs everybody's doing. I think we're getting things done. We've reprioritized, both boards have their goals, and so this is to the spirit of the question. We put the budgeting before the auditing for this particular season. It wasn't a Hampstead-driven goal, but it's mindset, so we had to get the business office, it's 3 different budgets, so they're doing all the budgeting at the same time. So we've forced Hampstead up primarily because of the Timberlane goals to get the budgeting done sooner. I'm hoping that we're going to, there's going to be some benefit to this on the other side that we haven't realized yet, when it gets into late October, early November, that stuff that we would have been doing then is done. So I also don't know that yet. I haven't done this time frame before. But we've changed the workflow to meet the board's goals, really, so.
Right?
Well, I'm hoping, as you just mentioned, I'm hoping that when we get down to this item 2, that you do have some good news for the board here tonight, because, as you know, I've been asking, and on several occasions here, superintendent as well as the business office, because this board has already voted, and authorized to get another person. So whenever I'm down here, I kind of try to push that and say, how you making out with that? Because I know that that person is going to,
Well done, Brian.
or whether it's that person or a person like that person, it'll be night and day.
Well done moving the agenda along. I like it.
Let's,
Okay.
Very subtle.
All right, let's move on to superintendent draft goals. Timberlane has not yet finalized their goals, so I don't think we can take a vote on these. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm assuming Hampstead has already approved their goals.
Good?
Yes.
Yeah, so my hope, and Chairman O'Neill has sent along some items, and I expressed Hampstead and the Timberlane goals, we try to kind of push them together, and I'm really 50-50. I'm working in both districts kind of simultaneously. So I would just I just ask all board members, when you go through this, if this is missing things that you think you'd like to see here. I'm perfectly happy trying to weave goals in. I was concerned sometimes when the resources aren't available. However, I will say, the execution of the strategic plan in both districts is a priority. So I think when you listen to the budget presentations, they've budgeted based on your strategic plan. You're gonna hear that kind of language. It's helped them along with when they have to make a decision, I said, look at the strategic plan and make sure that your budgeting fits in the strategic plan. So, we're short some people in terms of implementation and execution, but that's really the only goal suggestion that maybe you don't see alive and well in here, and maybe you can help me craft it. But tomorrow night, I think, Timberlane, you'll probably get through the rest of the goals, right? And then, we'll go from there. So if you have anything, I guess, if it's an SAU, well, this is tricky. So SAU chair, SAU goals, these are really Timberlane goals, Hampstead goals. So I don't know if it's Chairman O'Neill and Chairperson Parnell that the individual members would send them to, or through you, because there's SAU goals. What's your pleasure?
Well, I thought the discussion was that typically we do not have SAU goals, that each district has goals. That was discussed at our meeting.
True.
My concern was that, and I know it was a discussion amongst the board, was that there be quantifiable goals and SMART goals, especially considering the business operations. But
No, and you know through our communications, as far as having those goals for the person responsible, I have been working on SMART goals for the person. I just didn't put those necessarily in my goals. So that was a little bit of a disconnect. And I was fine at one time, we talked about this years ago, about having SAU goals, not necessarily superintendent's goals that are district-specific. I don't know if that's as effective as driving the work, but there's three sets of work. There's the SAU work, but then there's individual district work. Sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's not, right? Because SAU is more service-oriented, right?
yeah. Jen?
Can we just go through this one? So, all right, there are no SAU goals. These,
Correct.
right? So these goals are based on Hampstead's goals, based on Timberlane's goals. I understand the superintendent is an employee of the SAU, but I don't understand. I'm not comfortable voting on Hampstead's goals. I mean, I don't understand why we vote on this, as a group rather than just within our own individual boards based on our own board's goals.
Well, I think it's because the superintendent's contract calls for the bonus or compensation is based on achieving quantifiable goals at the SAU level. That's
But there are no
why it's
SAU
voted.
level goals.
That's,
This is, to your point, I mean, the SAU is like, it's a service-oriented, so if I was just doing SAU goals, they'd look very different.
Correct.
This is the work that rolls out into the districts, which neither one, I mean, they're both important for different reasons. I mean, but, I mean, you could vote on it and abstain from, you could vote on them in two parts if you wanted, if there was some sort of procedural piece, but
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, like, I don't wanna hold this up by, Timberlane coming back tomorrow to do their goals, but then not be able to move forward with this until our next SAU meeting. I mean, why can't Hampstead just vote for theirs and we vote for ours?
well, we have a meeting in 2 weeks because,
Okay.
You could just, I think that's been tacitly kind of decided is that you're only, even though you're voting on both goals, that you're really only weighing in on your goals. as your district goals, so.
And this is more of a unique year, because the reality of this, I mean, it's been since July 1. I'm doing all the work in both, from this particular seat in both. I don't have somebody helping me with one or the other, which is fine, and I believe the goals reflect that. I've tried to work closely with both boards to make sure that my goals align with your goals as boards. And I'd be directing administrators that directly report to me and beyond. Their goals should look very similar. Like, that was why I made the reference to the strategic plan. I know that's really important in both districts. And it may seem like a no-brainer, but that's something people need to be reminded that should be a driver when you're budgeting. You should be looking at, when you ask for things, they should fit into the strategic plan. They shouldn't be outside the strategic plan, especially when it's driving up your budget, right?
So we'll take a vote on these next time. Number 9, New Hampshire School Board Association Policy Review Update. I think I already jumped the gun on that. Mrs. Sherman advised me that should be hopefully done sometime in November. We may have it at the meeting November 13th. If not, I guess it would be pushed out to the following spring meeting. Number 10 is the Assistant Superintendent position. Dr. Metzler?
I mean, I have no update other than the update I shared with you, and it's real person-specific, so I'm not comfortable. I mean, I don't know how much, we don't have
Well,
how much you want to say publicly.
Well, I guess the issue here is that based on the June 24th meeting, by general consent, the board agreed to allow the superintendent to recruit an interim assistant superintendent for a period of 1 year in consultation with the SAU board chair and one representative each from Timberlane and Hampstead boards, and to further begin the process for advertising for a permanent assistant superintendent in October of 2019. So we're now in 2019. We were unsuccessful in securing an interim assistant superintendent. So we're back at the assistant superintendent search.
Is it okay to point out why we were unsuccessful?
That's my question.
I mean, I didn't
Why
have
don't we have
candidates
one?
that I wasn't comfortable with, candidates that you weren't comfortable with, meaning the board representatives. And I was comfortable with everybody I sent to you, or tried to send to you. I'm looking for somebody to assist with the work, looking at what we need based on what I believe my strengths and weaknesses may or may not be, and what the person in that office could offer. And so the people I've recommended, 3, all which I think could do the job, one reason or another. No, I'm not making any judgment. One reason or another, one or both or either weren't comfortable, so we didn't move forward with them.
Well, the third candidate, we requested to have a meeting. And when you say you, you're speaking of both Caitlin and I, who
That's
were in
correct. The
agreement
team is the
on all the
3 of us.
candidates.
Yep.
You were comfortable, neither she nor I were comfortable with the first 2. We wanted to meet with you regarding the last candidate. We requested that on August 21st, and we have not been able to set up a meeting yet, not pointing fingers at anybody. But now we are in October, so that this whole interim is off the table, because right now, we're looking at a general consensus of going out for a permanent and advertising in October, unless the board wants to change their mind from the June meeting.
Well, I want to remind you, the other directive you asked me to take off, I have to take off quite a few days this year, so you'll be without any superintendent or assistant superintendent, or anybody else qualified in the SAU to sit in the chair, because it really requires credentials and a license to actually be the superintendent or assistant superintendent. I know you may have seen some of that in the news recently. So that's my concern of not having another qualified person to represent the SAU, or either board for that matter. I mean, I can put a representative at the Timberlane meeting or the Hampstead meeting, but, as far as the SAU, I don't have a second in command, if you will.
Correct, and that motion was to use unused vacation time no later than August 31st, 2020.
Correct. It's quite a few days.
That-
We're talking in the neighborhood of 10 weeks during a year, in addition to more time that will be added next summer. So it's a lot of time. It's like 12 or 13 weeks off, which I gotta tell you, I don't get an hour off. Under this current structure, under this thin staff, I know there's no more comp time. I'm working 7 days a week. I'm getting 5 hours of sleep a night, 4 hours of sleep. That's my reality, to try to meet all the demands from this SAU and the two districts as it's currently structured. I'm doing it, we're doing the best we can, but we are, it's the same three people with our other support, Kathy Belcher, et cetera, but it's the same three people that everything's falling on. Negotiations, facilities, you name it, budgeting, auditing, everything. It's falling on three people. It's a lot to ask. I'm having a hard time even getting to recommend people that we need to you because we have a process we have to follow to get interviewing teams together, to get finalists recommended, to get them interviewed. It's really difficult. There's only so many hours in the day. I can't even get meetings with certain people. I don't have time. I don't have half an hour for you during the week. That's not keeping you out of here. I just don't have it. I have people trying to come in to see me. They can't come in to see me. Teachers that want to see me, TTA that wants to see me. I just don't have the time, right?
Okay, we're understanding of that. That's why we're talking about the assistant superintendent position right now. And the fact that Mrs. Yasenka?
Does anyone have an idea when we start this process, when we realistically might have someone in place
When we start what process?
of hiring an assistant superintendent?
I don't know. I mean, it depends how you structure your position posting. Do you start interviewing as soon as you get a qualified candidate, or do you hold the posting open for 30 days? All those are factors in how long it takes.
The other factors is the pool. This is the right time of year to advertise. But I think the board needs to acknowledge that that pool is impacted by the current climate, meaning withdrawal climate of the SAU. There's an uncertainty there that, I have a lot of friends that work in districts that are people that would be qualified or eligible, that have extreme caution to apply here because of that, because of the uncertainty.
Certainly.
And that's
So-
understandable. I don't think I would
Certainly
apply to an
understandable.
SAU that I thought was gonna break up, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to people.
So is the feeling amongst the board that we post the position for a full-time permanent assistant superintendent? Right?
One of the applicants, it's probably have to go non-public to talk about her.
Yeah.
I have an idea that.
Hold
I
on,
mean,
we're almost done with, I think maybe we should,
I have a question about the
Jen.
In line with what you said, I would agree. I would be a little hesitant to apply for a permanent position, knowing that there is this withdrawal vote on the table. So would it be in our best interest to advertise it as an interim position? To still advertise it as an interim one-year position?
We could do that.
That way, people really fully understand what it is that they're actually applying for.
Typically, people, I'm sorry to cut you off, people wouldn't leave a district to join a district for a partial year. You might get some retired folks that, you also have to understand, I know what I need in that position. It's not just a body. I could put somebody in that position, it could end up being more work for me, not less, right? So it depends what kind of commitment you're gonna make to the candidate, right? So if it's just from now until June, you might get one kind of pool. If it's a multi-year, is what people typically look at. That's tricky to do right now, based on the climate, to say, normally it's 3 years, but that's not gonna happen. I mean, we're pretty safe for a year and some, meaning June of the following year. Perhaps it's something to consider if we look at the pool. I mean, we can do any number of things, but you gotta remember, somebody's giving up probably some sort of, they have some security somewhere else to come to a place where they won't feel that kind of security, right? And so it's, it might be good for somebody because it might be good for their resume, or it might not be. Depends. It's so person-specific in terms of what their aspirations may be and where they are in their life and their career. But I have to tell you, anybody that's currently in the jobs, doing the jobs, and they're probably not going to leave somewhere with security for a place where they don't feel secure. And it's hard. I mean, how do I talk somebody into applying when I know that? They ask me questions. I give them real answers to real questions. The uncertainty is, I don't know. I don't know. You're asking me.
So I did ask that you contact MRI to see if they had anybody that might be available.
Well, we did some research on MRI. their work, they list a whole lot of clients. They list us as a client, which made me ask Jeff, when were we a client of MRI? You know, and I guess that had to do with
Onboarding our fixed assets a number of
fixed
years
out
ago.
a number of years ago. So there's things they do that are more budget or municipality driven. I know that they started a new school kind of management piece, and we're still in the process of, do they help you recruit and hire, or do they actually have people that they can send you?
So
We-
you haven't talked to them?
Me personally, no, we were still
is-
researching it.
oh,
Because I'm not,
oh, okay,
I'm
'cause
not a
I think-
fan of, a temporary person in the assistant superintendent's role from an agency has little or no value to me. I'll have to spend more time training them than it's worth.
Okay, so you haven't contacted them yet?
We do contact, we were talking to him this week.
Oh, you talked to him this week? Oh, I thought you were still researching.
Well, researching and talking to them. I mean, I know
Oh.
their school management piece is brand spanking new. They haven't, their other stuff is more municipality driven, like fire chiefs, police chiefs. It's more of a town
I
manager.
understand that,
Oh,
yeah.
you know
We've
the
used them
agency.
for the town. So you are speaking to them now?
Yeah, we're looking into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. We're speaking to them, looking into it as one of the potential options.
Okay.
I agree with them. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not a big fan of, it's just, that's the name of a company, MRI, if you will, name of the organization, but I'm not a big fan of bringing someone in for 90 to 120 days that's going to spend two-thirds of their time learning what SAU55 and Timberlane's all about. You probably won't get anything out of it, because like you just said, you're going to spend half your time, it's going to be more work for the people in the building to have that person here. You know?
Well, and we have
I'm not a big fan of that kind of
If you
stuff.
were to talk to a number of the people, right, so I like to hire, people that I don't have to babysit, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
quite frankly, I'm not gonna have the time to sit with somebody.
Okay.
I'm not.
Well,
Okay,
It's not like,
so-
it's not like sending someone to the business office and work on an audit. It's very
Stuff the
task
envelopes
specific.
or
All
whatever,
right,
no,
so-
that's not it.
I agree.
I think we're gonna have to go into a non-public to have the discussion that we need to have before we make a decision on how we're gonna move forward with this. So let's move down to number 11, the bookkeeper accounting position update.
Yes, so on an up note, we have hired a candidate, I think was described as perhaps someone who, for the hours that they were being part-time, someone who's perhaps looking to transition back into, having the experience back into that field for whatever reason, if there were kids and whatever, take a break. I'm very pleased to announce we brought Jill Johnston on board. She'd be a very good fit in the office. She has a good skill set from years ago and transitioned out of the accounting finance world, is looking to transition back in, and I'm pleased
Okay.
to be able to bring her on.
Sounds really familiar to me.
I don't know, I know that there'd been a call for a mid to upper level accounting personnel as well. It's not really what we're able to utilize Jill, but I think she's a very good, she'll be a very good addition, so.
Okay, thanks.
In addition to, we still have Mr. Colby giving us
That's
as much
full-time.
time as he can.
So how many hours a week are we, between these two personnel, we will be looking at?
Mr. Colby is an hour or 2 hours,
Okay, and
maybe,
what-
max.
Okay,
And the new employee would be 25 to 28, I would say, very close to
Okay.
28.
Brian, did you? No?
No, that was my question.
Okay.
You need that person like yesterday.
When does she start? Like, has she started or?
No, it'll be, I believe, just a couple weeks.
She's going through the process of, she's being processed.
Just wondering how fast we can get her in.
We might
for
be
it.
able to bring her and introduce her at our next meeting, maybe, the 16th? Would you want him to bring her and introduce her, or? I don't know how kind of
It's up to
pressure
the
that
board.
is.
I don't really, I don't see a need to have somebody have to come in at night to say
Okay.
hi to us, but if anybody else?
I'm good.
No,
I'm
we're good. Okay.
Wish you the best. Get it
All right.
going.
Welcome
Thank
her,
you.
that'd be great.
Do you want to do the administrator's report before the non-public or not? Because I see it's on after the non-public. Should we do it beforehand?
You do not.
No report this evening.
Oh, okay, so well, that makes it easy then. Is there a personnel report?
Well, other than, that would have been the personnel report, is just the,
Okay,
are we referring as an accountant or a bookkeeper? Accountant, so part-time accountant
okay.
that we hired, but that wouldn't be something you take action on, and, no, that's it. Oh, and, well, I can do it, no, I accepted the resignation of a person from the HR department 2 days ago, and we've posted that position, so we're recruiting replace that
Okay,
person.
okay.
What position was that?
The HR generalist, that was Heather Menninger. She did a great job for us, so to thank her for all that she's done. She's moving on to a nice position. They recognized her skills and so, working for the town of Portsmouth in their HR.
Oh, good for her.
So we wish her luck. She's been great, and our HR department has come quite a long way in recent years, and she's been a big part of that. So thanks, Heather, for everything that you've done. Watching.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I think because we're looking to go into a we can't go into a non-public under more than, can we go in under A, C, and L at one time, or do we need motions? We need to go one, we need to go in and out. So I guess we should go in under A and C first, is that? Yes. Is it, I'm seeking a motion to go into a non-public under RSA 91A:3.
So moved.
Second.
First by Mr. Boyle and a second by Mrs. Silva.
A and C, you said?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dooley?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Mortimer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Parnell? Yes. Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.